11 o'clock, let's open up the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call of the new board?
Supervisor Milky,
Here.
Treasurer Rogers,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Lannon,
Here.
Trustee Lay,
Here.
Trustee Thering,
Here.
and Clerk Cody here. All are here.
Thank you very much. We have an agenda in front of us. I'm assuming everybody's gone through it and happy to entertain any motions regarding the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need to speak up.
Sorry, support?
Okay. Motion by Rogers, support by Thering. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved unanimously. Our Commissioner Engler is not here this evening, but I'm going to take a moment during presentations just to kind of, as chair, speak a little bit, because I had a lot of thoughts about coming into tonight. So I want to make sure that, one, our new members, the onboarding went well. Got materials you think you need. I see laptops in front of you. You have emails?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So from this day forward, we can use that now? Okay. I'm probably going to take some additional time tonight as we go through the agenda just to explain some things as we do it.
Thank you.
And feel free to ask questions if you'd like. But I want things to make sense. And then let's see, just check my notes here. MTA, we do have MTA new officials training in Mount Pleasant in January, which is also good for those that have served before too. Is that at the Comfort Inn, do you know, Mr. Stuhldreher?
It is.
It is? So that's a great opportunity, so maybe consider that. One of the items that training will cover, I'm sure, is how do board meetings work, right? So that's what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, how the meeting flows. And so in the previous board, we spent 4 years together, and we kind of knew each other's nuances, we kind of got a rhythm. And so I allowed the meeting to be maybe looser than I want us to start at. And so I'm going to probably take a more stringent approach to who's allowed to speak when. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak, but I want to recognize people to speak. I want to make sure that we're respectful of each other, and I'm not anticipating anything negative. I just want to set a rhythm that we can loosen up as we see needed. Does that make sense? So I'm going to try to keep us on task. I'm going to try to keep us on the agenda. Try to keep discussions within a motion where that makes sense. As you prepare for your packet, I'm just going to make a suggestion. As you prepare for your packet, or with your packet, if you're like me, you read through stuff and you're like, oh, I got a question on this, I got a question on that. And some of those questions are very easy to ask here. But sometimes it's really helpful to get some basis of understanding of those questions ahead of time. That way you can formulate a better opinion when you come here for discussion. So when those occur, I really encourage reaching out to our manager. I'm putting you on the spot here. I hope this is okay. I didn't ask you. I encourage you to reach out to our manager and ask those questions. But what's also helpful is if you do that, it's also helpful to ask those same questions again here before in the front of this board. That gives everybody here the chance to hear the question and hear the response. Make sense? So I'm encouraging you to talk to our manager as much as you need to. There, I just added to your plate. Warrants. So this evening, I don't know if new trustees familiar with the warrant review, but in our consent agenda, the trustees have the responsibility of reviewing the warrants that are to be paid. Trustees, their primary statutory responsibility is fiscal responsibility, and so it's a good thing that it's incumbent Trustee Brown had warrants for this meeting, and so that's in our consent agenda. But we need to make sure we have a schedule set up for rotation of the trustees moving forward now, for each month, each meeting? Is it each meeting? Each month?
Month.
Month.
Goes
Each
by
month.
month.
I haven't done it in a while. But I want to make sure we get that schedule done. Is it done? Do we know?
Is the schedule done?
Yeah. Do we have a schedule rotation for?
Yes.
It's
We
up
do?
on the,
Oh, fantastic.
It's on the mailbox.
I should have
on the
asked you.
boxes next to the office down the hallway.
Well, for those that weren't aware, you're on a schedule. Let's see. Just check my notes. My apologies. Part of your onboarding packets, I'm assuming, included the OMA, the Open Meetings Act. I highly recommend reading through that. It not only protects the public, but it also protects you or us. And then I think I'm pretty excited to be here. So, questions, comments? Clerk Cody?
Just when you speak into the microphone so they can hear you online or over when watching online viewing. They won't be able to hear you unless you're speaking into the microphone.
Great comment. We all good? Thank you all. So moving on then, that brings us to public comment, item 7 on the agenda. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And we'll open up public comment at 7:07 PM.
I have no one in the waiting room.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, I'm Sandy Hallis, and I live, did you say you need my address? I'm sorry.
Yes, name and address, please.
Okay, 580 South Shepherd Road, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And I'm actually here on behalf of my niece Jessica Canderas Gallinger and her husband Jared. And they've been trying to get their property rezoned from the I-1 light industrial to the R1 residential so that they can keep their chickens and ducks. They got these maybe, was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago. They didn't know that they weren't supposed to have them. And they've got 3 kids. Their kids love them. Jessica and Jared love them. They eat the eggs. It's a nice hobby for the whole family. It helps to gain responsibility for the kids by going out to take care of them and feeding them. And so we really appreciate your time in considering this possible rezoning. And I just wanted to let you know we're here tonight in case you have any questions. All right?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one else coming forward, let the record show that there was no one connected remotely. And with that, we'll close public comment at 7:09 PM. That takes us to reports, board comments. Item A, current list of boards and commissions. So in your packet, hold on. And this will be in your packet every time, is a list of boards that, township boards, I should say, that largely this board, the Board of Trustees, makes appointments to. Prior to this meeting, so that the previous board made one, for lack of a better term, I'll call it emergency assignment. We've been trying to fill a planning commission spot for a while. they decided to do that and not take any further action and let this board move forward with appointments from, being that we're the new board, right? So I just want to give you a heads up. We have, let me look at my notes on this. My understanding, although it's not been confirmed, is we'll likely have a ZBA seat open at the beginning of the year or the end of the year. The Board of Review has 3 members whose terms all end on December 31st. As I understand it, 2 of those members have reapplied to continue that seat, and I believe the third one, that's the intent.
We received that.
Oh, we did?
application
We
today.
served the application today, thanks. We do have an alternate spot, and knowing how the Board of Review works, it's helpful to have that alternate, because the March Board of Review is a few days of long, intense meetings, all day long, and it's good to have an alternate there to step in if they need to. So it'd be nice if we could, prior to January or February, find an alternate for the Board of Review. Excuse me. We also have a couple seats on the EDA board, whose terms are coming up. I've not had a chance to talk to those individuals yet. They may reapply, but just letting you know we have those up. So my intent with this board was that we would make what appointments we need to at the December meeting. Is that reasonable? Clerk Cody?
The planning commission board, the board representative expired.
Yes.
So we
for us
will
going-
need
yeah.
to re-up it probably before December, right? Is there a meeting before then?
Technically, James Therian term,
We may determine till the expiration
Yeah.
of the term.
all right, so let me back up. There are a few board appointments that this board makes of Board of Trustee members as representatives to other boards, like Planning Commission. The past several years, Trustee Therian has been the Planning Commission representative. I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to talk about the liaisons and all that stuff later. No, I'm glad you brought this up, though. I would like to recommend, I guess, that we allow Trustee Therian to sit in that spot until we do a full, we go through the full process ourselves of who we want to appoint where. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure, absolutely.
We'll have to make it official.
You'd like to make it official?
Yeah.
All right, so what I would suggest then is that we appoint Trustee Therian, knowing that as we go through the liaisons and board appointments, yours is up for sale as well. Not sale,
Understood.
sale's a bad term.
Yeah,
to use,
I have
but-
no issue.
Okay.
I understand, absolutely.
So it'd be a
moved.
temporary,
Can I just say so moved?
sure.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Rogers, I heard support by Landon. So, just to be clear, the motion, as I understand it then, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to appoint Trustee Therian as the Planning Commissioner representative from the Board of Trustees, with the caveat that as we do appointments, that it may be temporary.
Understood.
So still make the expiration date 11, what is it, 11/20/2028?
8. So I think the clerk is asking if you would add that to your motion, the date.
Yes.
Is that amendment reasonable, Trustee?
Support with
Landon?
the amendment.
All right, further discussion on that? All in favor of appointing Trustee Therian to the Planning Commission as the liaison? I didn't ask you, are you good with that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
understood. Yeah.
okay.
Thanks.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Thanks for stepping up again.
Yeah.
So we'll talk later in the meeting about the board appointments and how we need to go about doing that. So would that also be true then for EDA? I'm asking our clerk.
Well, yeah, and I think, is that the one that you have to automatically do, right? But we still need to
You don't expire till.
Yeah, I
the
kind of
28th.
automatically do, but it has technically expired, I suppose. Mr. Stuhldreher, do you know technicalities in this?
I think we should do it technical, or, you know,
Won't hurt to do it.
You talking about your position, Brian?
On the EDA board, because that's a,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
what he has to. Motion to Supervisor Mulkey be the, are you the secretary on the EDA?
So, no,
Or that's the Board of Review?
that's the Board of Review, so which we should also address then.
Nominate him to be the Board of Trustees representative on the E EDA.
Support.
A motion by Cody, support by Therian.
Expiration term 11/20/2028.
You accept that amendment on the date, Trustee Therian? Trustee Therian,
Yes, sir.
you accept the amendment of the
I do
date?
accept the
Okay.
amendment.
Does it make sense what we just did? Okay. Because the board appointments are expired.
There's
we're trying to cover
statutorial
it.
duties
Yeah.
that you have to do.
Have to do, right. Any other discussion?
Just according to this schedule, you currently are in that position and your expiration date is 11/20/28, according to this.
Oh, it's on there already?
Yeah.
We might
Okay.
already
That's
changed
what I was
it, though.
questioning, I'm like,
It's good to have in the books, I suppose, so.
Yeah.
The motion.
We just updated the list.
Thank
so.
you. Any other discussion? All in favor of appointing me to the EDA as liaison, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. I suppose, now Board of Review is statutorily, I'm automatically the secretary, so I don't know that we need to do any appointment to that.
You're not a voting member.
Not, I'm not a
No.
voting member. So while we're at this, and this is out of the order that I had planned on, was saving all this for the end. Election Commission as another one that we ultimately have to appoint out of here. When do they need to meet next?
Next year. So,
Next
I
year.
mean, if we can do it in December, I'll talk
Okay.
to, or reach out and see who wants to do it, your
Okay.
duties or whatever for the election commission.
Not something we have to appoint now. Okay.
What, I need 2 other members other than myself.
Okay, thanks.
And then,
It's not a high demand board, so I would recommend if you would like to consider serving on that, then talk to Clerk Cody about that. Clerk Cody? You had something else?
I do want to say something. Jacob Trudell, he did put his application in. It'll be in the next one because his term for the Board of Review will expire 12/31.
Yeah,
But he
they all
just
do.
started too,
Yes.
but I just wanted to say that he resubmitted it
Good.
today.
Thank you. All right, we'll get to the other stuff towards the end of the meeting. Are we good on boards and appointments?
Yes.
That all make some sense? Have a November monthly activity report in your packet. If there's any questions, now would be the time to raise them.
I had a question, there, on the top of page 11, it talks about the elimination of RU to actual usage for water billing. Is that something that, I mean, I know we have a list of goals. Is that something that maybe we'll talk about in this sometime in '25?
Yeah, I can imagine that.
I mean,
It's
we've
been-
had little discussions
Yeah.
throughout the last few years about that, and I just kind of very interested in about that, so it just kind of struck me, so, thanks.
And two boards ago, we spent much of that, our final year, looking at that.
Yeah.
But so it's been 4 years now. I just have one comment, reading through this, and maybe it was previously in here and I missed it, but Leo's Coney Island coming? Is that moving forward? Okay. I just really like Coney dogs, so kind of excited about that one.
Same owner has one in Saginaw, very nice building, very nice.
It's a great spot there, too.
It is a nice spot.
I'm assuming that's going to be probably next to is it Members First Credit Union?
To the west
Based on
of
the
that,
description?
yeah.
Yeah, just to the west lot of that.
West of there'll be a oil change place, there'll be the bank and oil change place a Big Chicken, 2 retail spots, and then I believe the Coney Islands, if I understand the plans.
Wow.
The gentleman that's presented the site plan for the Coney's is also the Big Chicken and the 2 retail locations.
So that whole section's gonna be built up.
It's gonna be close.
Wow.
What's that community talking about?
This would be on Bluegrass, near Walmart Menards, west of the light. So on the south side, and that southwest corner currently is the bank, the credit union.
Yep.
The
Okay.
members for, or is it Midland? Whatever it's called.
It's Midland.
Yeah, so it's the lots moving west of there then.
Okay.
Does that make
So they're,
sense?
Yep.
the back of their stores will be Walmart's parking lot.
Nice.
Yeah, I just noted that in the write-up and was excited. Anything else in the activity report? Seeing none, moving on. That brings us to item 9C on our agenda, Community and Economic Development Director. Mr. Nanny, you have the floor.
Thank you. 2 items tonight. The first one is to talk about the Planning Commission, the EDA Board activities. My thunder has been stolen, though, on the Planning Commission.
I'm sorry.
I'm glad of it, actually. I'll start with the Zoning Board of Appeals. They did not have a meeting. We have not had any applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We will not have a meeting in December, which means they will have basically gone around for the whole year without a meeting. Their next opportunity for a meeting is scheduled in February. But at this point, we don't have any activity that seems to be heading in that direction. Our Economic Development Authority Board met on the 19th. They had a couple of items on their agenda. One was, as you know, for our new members, the road construction on M20 in our East EDA district in 2023 wiped out a large section of our underground irrigation system that was part of the East EDA district, where we provided irrigation all along both sides of M20, basically to keep that front area along the road looking neat and orderly, as part of creating character for that business district. The EDA board has been looking at what to do about that, whether to put it back. MDOT, as part of their road construction, prepared the ground for us on that. They did put in conduit, pipe under all the driveways, so that we could put it back. And their action at this meeting was actually to review a proposal from Graber and Associates, which is the contractor they selected to look at this in design and construction assistance proposal. This would basically take the project potentially, certainly through design, and if they move it forward from there through bidding and inspections through the construction process to reinstall that underground irrigation. So they did approve that proposal, and we'll look forward to seeing some design work done early in the new year. The other item on their list was their annual authorization for participation in the Outreach Mid-Michigan Festival of Banners. And these are the banners that go up on our streetlights along Picker Road, 78 banners that will be going up again in 2025. So they did approve their participation in that project. The Planning Commission also met on the 19th, and yes, they did review a preliminary site plan for a development that we have been working with the developers for a number of months now. Both help them finalize the site. They had originally been looking at another site that simply was too small for what they wanted to do. But we're pleased now that it's out in the public that this is a proposal for Leo's Coney Island and Shack's Big Chicken restaurant to go on the same site, along with 2 retail spaces. And this would, as was said, on the south side of Bluegrass Road. This project is at the west end of those vacant lots. So, as was said, the Members First Credit Union in Valvoline, there'll actually be a gap between Valvoline and this project. That's undeveloped land, or yet to be developed land in that space. So they did get preliminary site plan approval, and they're very excited about it. If you'd like to see what this looks like, there's a very similar project they've already constructed down in Clio. I've seen it. It's a great project. Very nice to go take a look at. The other item on the Plan Commission's agenda was actually to approve their annual report to the Board of Trustees, which they did. You'll see that, I think, as part of your next meeting packet. And it was a pretty substantial list of items that they worked on, but I'll save that for the details for that for next time. So with that, any questions about those elements?
Just a question about, I noticed there was construction fence around right next to the members first and earth being moved. So would that be the Valvoline?
That's
what-
Valvoline site,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, they are starting construction. They've had a building permit for a while now, but they've finally started construction on that.
Okay, nice.
Thanks, Rodney.
I'll say it then. Trustee Brown, when he was doing his warrants, made a comment about how nice the East DDA looked and the banners, and he said it looks really classy. Am I mischaracterizing your
Very
words?
sharp, I mean, very classy, and they look great.
Excellent.
I think 5:30 this morning when I was coming through it, it lights the road up.
Yep.
Lights
Same
it up
thing.
very well down there.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, you sure tell the difference when you hit the line.
You bet you can.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Gets awful lonely after Somerton, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it looks beautiful, very
Yep.
nice.
They do a wonderful job.
Thank you,
Those lights.
thank you Supervisor Milton.
I had to share your comments. Are we all good? Thank you.
All right. Well, the other item on my list is to give you an update on economic development activities. As Community and Economic Development Director, one of my areas of focus is local economic development. And to kind of give you an overview of that, I'd like to use a farming analogy. We are in part an agricultural community, so I think it's reasonable to do that. In farming, much of what the farmer does is prepare the ground for planting, and it's similar in economic development. Certainly, a good part of what I do is helping to prepare the ground for that new growth. Another piece of the puzzle for the farmer is planting. If you don't plant, nothing will grow, and so it's the same thing here. I often have the opportunity to plant seeds, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means in the economic development side. And certainly, once things start to grow, you have to nurture it. If you don't nurture that growth, it doesn't grow. And so we'll talk about a little bit about the economic development nurturing, and then finally, you get to harvest. And so that's sort of the foundation of this, so the framework of it. So I'd like to talk first about nurturing the ground. Nurturing the ground, as a lot of it, we actually just went through the process element of the nurturing the ground. A lot of nurturing the ground coming into the township now 5 years ago, January 2020, was to work on updating some of our township ordinances. Those that have gone through that experience, we did update a number of ordinances. One of the key ones for economic development is our zoning ordinance. You can think of that really, it's a land development ordinance. It puts guidelines and standards around what new development looks like, what standards or rules might apply to particular projects, and also how we review and approve development projects that are coming into the community. And in 2020, we did complete and update the zoning ordinance and adopted it. It went into effect in late September of 2020. And that ordinance included a number of new tools that bear fruit, really, ultimately, through on the economic development side. One of those new tools was changing our site plan approval process. In the previous ordinance, projects that come in for review by the Plan Commission often came in only after they'd gone through all the other agencies, all the outside agencies, all the engineering had been done, and essentially the plan would come to the Plan Commission at a time when the developer was ready to start construction. And only then was the Plan Commission reviewing that site plan. And what that meant was it was certainly far harder for the Plan Commission to have any influence on that plan. If there were concerns or changes that needed to be made, those changes were much more expensive to make because the plan was farther down the development process. The 2020 ordinance changed that. to actually put the Plan Commission at the front of the line with what is called a preliminary site plan. You might think of it as a conceptual plan. It hasn't had all the engineering done yet. It hasn't gone through all the outside agency reviews yet. It's a plan that certainly is understandable, but it's not fully built out, you might say. So it's at a stage when it's much easier to make adjustments to it, easier and less expensive for the developer. And that process has borne a lot of fruit along the way to help developers be able to put together good projects and to get answers early on from the township that, yes, this is a great project. We're looking forward to seeing it built. Whereas before they had to wait till the very end. Another change that came out of the zoning ordinance that has been very useful is the minor site plan. This is a type of site plan approval. It's actually administrative. It doesn't go to the planning commission. It's reviewed and approved by staff, by our zoning administrator, and it's intended for smaller projects. Now, I want to be clear. By smaller, I don't mean not important, because these are projects. These are building additions. These are expansion of a parking lot, for example, or cases where it might be a change of use, where you might have a site that was used for one thing and it is proposed to be changed over to something completely different that may fall under a very different set of rules. An extreme example of that, not one we have here, but kind of illustrates it, is a church becoming a restaurant. Very different rules for those two activities. And so the minor site plan process was established to allow these types of projects that don't need all the engineering done necessarily, they don't need the time necessary in front of a planning commission. They just need, we just need to have enough information to be able to verify that the ordinances that apply have been satisfied. And so the minor site plan makes that happen in a way that's a lot easier for the developer, again, less expensive, and saves time as well. So that has proved very effective and supported a lot of these smaller projects to take place. One more item on the preparing the ground is our downtown development authorities, two of them, our east and west DDA districts. In 2021, this goes back a little ways, but it's worth mentioning, our DDA districts were set to expire. Under state law, they have a term, and they do expire unless you renew them or extend them. And in 2021, we did go through the process, extensive process, to both develop and adopt new development plans for each district that kind of set out the goals and what we'd like to work on for each district. And then also with the support and help of our taxing jurisdictions, we were able to extend both DDA districts for 20 years. And so within the boundaries of our DDA districts, it is our Economic Development Authority Board that has a great opportunity to help prepare that ground. The DDA districts themselves help to prepare the ground to support our businesses in each district. And so having that as a tool is very important. And as part of that update, we were able actually, in updating the development plans, we were able to add some additional tools for the toolbox for our Economic Development Authority Board, including the ability to offer grants for certain types of improvements, and even to potentially get into some redevelopment type work, demolition of derelict buildings, that sort of thing, which were not part of the original DDA development plans. So all that's preparing the ground. A lot of work, it always is for a farmer, preparing the ground. Once you're looking at planting seeds, I'd like to actually give you a couple of very recent examples. With planting seeds, one of the ways I plant seeds in the economic development field is through what's called business retention visits. It's just a fancy way of saying going out and talking to the business owner. And just recently, in fact, just very recently this week, I had the opportunity to go out and have a business retention visit with the leadership of Bandit Industries. Of course, a major employer in the region. A number of years ago now, just a few years ago, they bought 50 acres of our enterprise industrial park and moved expanded their operations into that space. So I had the opportunity to go out and visit along with representative from the state of Michigan, Economic Development Corporation, and also Jim McBride from our Middle Michigan Development Corporation, and visit with that leadership and find out what's going on. They've had a lot of changes in the last couple of years in leadership. So got to meet some of the folks who are now in charge. In this case, the state of Michigan planted many of the seeds. We were talking a lot about international sales, and it is definitely involved internationally. And the state of Michigan has a number of programs, grant loan programs that get into that space. They also do a lot of marketing of the state and its businesses internationally. So they were able to plant some seeds about potential ways that they could collaborate together. And I had the opportunity on behalf of the township to talk about our East DDA district and talk about some of the initiatives that we have going on that may benefit them, including the looping of the water line along Somerton Road, which will run along the east side of their space and provide additional fire hydrants and improved water service in the industrial park. So it was a good visit. I had one other visit just last week. I want to mention, and this was with a business in one of our DDA districts. This one, folks were looking at making some improvements. Just an idea, just had a thought about it, and I was able to share about our DDA grant program, which is one of our economic development tools, where business can apply to our Economic Development Authority Board if they're looking at, say, for example, a sign project. They want to replace or reconstruct an older sign. We have a potential grant money available. It does not pay for the whole project. It's not intended to, but it's intended to fill a gap, to help bring a project from an idea to success. And so in this case, we had the opportunity to share that with this particular business owner and to answer some questions and correct some misunderstandings. This particular business owner thought he couldn't do the work. He couldn't replace the sign because he wouldn't be allowed to put up one similar height to what he had. And I was able to let him know, no, that's not true. You'll be able to work with what you have in terms of the height, but perhaps put a nicer sign design there. Anyway, able to plant some seeds that way. Once you have the seeds grown, of course, you have to nurture them, and we certainly do that through business retention visits. That's a big one. Sometimes all we do in those visits is to let the folks know, those business owners know, that they have options, that they have resources. I had that experience earlier this year in a visit where the business owners didn't need anything. They had no questions, no concerns, and really, I'd never been there before. I knew they were there. Jim McBride, who came with me to that visit, didn't know them either. So for us, it was getting introduced and learning more about what they do. But mostly it was to simply let them know that if they do have questions, here's my card. If they do have a concern or have an interest in something, here's a resource that you can take a look at. And just knowing that you're not alone, just knowing you have some support out there could be a huge help to these businesses. And that's sort of part of that nurturing process. In a similar way, the banners and the holiday lights and the flowers and all that go on in our East ADA district and our sidewalks that we've constructed and maintained in those districts, that's also part of that nurturing process for our DDA districts to help create a certain character for the community and for that district to help support those businesses. And so each of those steps, although it's expensive and it's time consuming to maintain those things and cycle those banners and all those elements, but they are an important part of supporting our business districts. So with that, then, we've prepared the ground, we've planted the seeds, we've nurtured them, and we get to harvest. And so I'd like to conclude actually by reading a little bit of a letter. I thought about how to talk about the harvest, and I realized I already had the answer. When our planning commissioners occasionally leave us, they can occasionally end their term or resign. Always try to put together a thank you letter, and in each one I try to make sure I include something that reflects what they were interested in, and talks about reflects back what their interests were in thanking them. And so, earlier this year, in May, Commissioner Doug LaBelle resigned from the Plan Commission. And I put a thank you letter together, and I've just read just a bit of it. I thanked him for his service, of course. In the second paragraph, I said, though the Commission's, through the Commission's important role in land development and site plan approvals, I also appreciate your service in helping to enable both large and small improvements to be made in the Township's built environment. Excluding the new Isabel County Jail, which was a $44 million project on its own, it's interesting to note that since you joined the Commission in 2018, about 6 years total, the Township has experienced more than $58 million in commercial and industrial construction activity. That's a good harvest. Now, that's not the only harvest. That's just one statistic, but I thought it was an important one to share because his interest was really in that commercial and industrial side of things. And it does reflect all the activity that we see. And this is large projects and small projects that all build up to that $58 million. And then, of course, you add the jail in, over $100 million in commercial and industrial construction activity over the course of those 6 years. There are many more harvests to come. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve you in this role, and I do look forward to the harvest to come. Because, as I said, as we talked about with the Leos going on, there's always new projects coming and new investments that are taking place. So, with that, I'm happy to answer your questions you may have.
I've not seen any. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to board member reports. So this speaks a little bit to the liaison stuff, which we'll cover later. With the exception of some department heads, like clerk and treasurer, they may speak to their departments. But the other aspect of it is Trustee Therian may speak specifically to something that occurred at the planning commission meeting, or if someone's a liaison to, say, county commission, they may report on that. And so that's what this section is primarily for us to hear from different departments and for us to hear from our liaisons to other community boards, municipalities, et cetera. So with that, Trustee Therian.
As a representative of the Planning Commission, we are set. Mr. Nanny did a wonderful job, as always. And I don't really have anything to add at this point in time. And thank you for that report, so, this evening.
Yes, thank you. Clerk Cody? Nothing?
I don't think so.
Trustee Brown?
I'm a representative of the city commission, and I do not have a report. I'll have a report next meeting.
Trustee Lannon, I know you're not appointed to anything yet, but I'm going to ask anyways.
Yeah, thank you. I did have something to talk about at
Okay.
this point. I know this board is very strong and supportive of the members of the board and staff. If there's opportunity to get education in the area that will help them be stronger in their positions, that this board encourages that. And I happened to attend a seminar that MTA put on yesterday, and it was titled Treasurer's Guide to Tax Collecting. And me personally, in my trustee position, I found that it was very beneficial to help me understand my role in the fiduciary interest of the township. But I did get some literature, a book in regards to treasurers in townships and the presentation information. So I was hoping that we still have a resource and reading library here at the township that we can all utilize and put our information that we gain as we attend educational seminars, and have this, and was hoping to pass it off and learn where our library is currently, if it's still up and active, and if it's not, start building. So not only I gain the educational benefit of it, but there's great reference information for all of us to look at.
Anybody aware of that library still existing?
The library per se, not so much. What we have used to be called the supervisor's office. This board early on kind of changed that into a board of trustees, more office, and then more recently, it kind of became, I'll say, the clerk's overflow office, which we desperately need here. There is a bookshelf case in there. We'll clean it out and make room for the type of materials that trustee Lane was talking about.
Being that during election time, that office becomes essentially inaccessible, is it possible we could use shelves back here?
We could. I mean, we can find a place.
Okay.
We'll find a place.
Yeah, I like your idea.
Yeah, it's just great information that each one of us could benefit from, or reference as we have questions.
All good?
Yep, thanks.
I'm good.
Okay. Treasurer Rogers?
I was at the training yesterday and learned a lot, and I've got more training to do. I look forward to understanding every aspect of the treasurer's position, so I can answer questions that residents might even have that I currently can ask. I mean, that's important. I mean, the staff here is so helpful in answering any questions I have, which it's wonderful. But I'm looking forward to more trainings and growing.
Awesome,
Thanks.
thanks. Let's see, I have notes on a couple things. Bear with me, sorry. Last Tuesday, manager and I attended the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe 2% distribution. And I know I texted the old board on that morning. I think I texted the new board too, but in any event, this was included in our packet. And I just want to lift up and give a public, express my gratitude for the generosity of the tribe for Union Township. We were awarded $250,000 to help with the water main extension loop over on Somerton, which is the project that when we went out for bids was much more than we were anticipating. So that was a very generous gift. And even though this one wasn't directly awarded to us, we were a co-applicant with Deerfield Township. And we were awarded $178,000 roughly and some change for Meridian Road in that, so it's a 3-mile stretch, right? 3? 2.
3-mile Remus to baseline.
So that's a partnership between Deerfield Township then and Union Township
And the tribe and the
as other partners. Yes, correct. Yes, thank you. But I want to give a big thank you. That was big gifts to our township. And then later that day, yes, I did.
Okay. I didn't hear that part.
Oh, he's asking if I checked with you on member reports. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Later that day, the EDA met. Director Nanny covered a lot of that, but I'm going to lift up one piece that was, you could argue whether or not it was EDA business or not, but at the end of the meeting, one of the members commented about road patrol millage going down for the county and expressed concerns from largely, but not only, but largely from an economic development perspective that the Board of Trustees should be concerned about that. And I shared with, some of the other members spoke to that as well. My comment back was that it's been on my radar for at least for some time, and that I would share with all of you that meeting happened, and I'd encourage you to watch the last 5 or 10 minutes of the EDA meeting that happened last Tuesday. So this was kind of informal discussion by the EDA, but these are citizens of Union Township. And I realize Union Township did not vote for the millage. It was voted down in Union Township, but nonetheless, those are good citizen voices to listen to. Fair enough? And then that evening, I think there were 4 members from the board that went to the county commission meeting. We went to the work session, which started at 5 o'clock. And it was written up in the paper, so I won't get into all of that. But, I mean, there was a large crowd encroaching on 200 people, a lot of it having to do with the road patrol. But what I do want to lift up is that the county did make a decision to move forward on an agreement to begin to go after a bond for renovation of the county building. And as I understand it, and somebody correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but as I understand it, it's not a commitment, but had they not taken those steps, that door was going to begin to close. And so I think they were trying to leave the door open as to what their options were.
And since then, just last night, I think it was, this is Wednesday. Last night was Tuesday. They rescinded that resolution, which is a notice of intent, formerly called a notice of intent, and they rescinded that last night.
Wow.
They
Okay.
wanted to let,
Oh, boy.
they'll revisit it at the beginning of the year when they have their own new board is seated, and so allow an opportunity for the new board members to consider that building and what to do with it, along with allowing time for the new county administrator to weigh in on that as well. But they did rescind that last night. I don't think the vote was unanimous, but there was one vote, I believe, that was okay with letting it continue. There was no commitment by that notice of intent to borrow money, but it's been formally rescinded.
Okay, well, they did pass it once, and
Formally rescinded.
that was the one thing I felt I should lift up from that meeting. So, moving on then, that brings us to item 10 on the agenda, consent agenda. So, consent agenda is something that's described in our policy governance. It is intended to help speed up our meetings so that we're not spending a lot of time on more mundane approvals. For example, the warrants that Trustee Brown went through today, looking at the checks to be written. I'm going to ask Trustee Brown if there were any issues.
Trustee Lannon went through those.
We both went through them.
Oh, did he?
Oh, I'll ask the two of you if there
Oh.
were any issues with the warrants.
No.
So it gives us an opportunity to approve in mass non-controversial things, such as minutes. So I do encourage, though, that despite it being in consent agenda, that you always look at the minutes, because once we approve them, they're the minutes. And that means motions that were made need to be, we want those correct in the minutes, because those are the motions that we live by, even if they're typed incorrectly. Yes, please.
If you notice a typo or something, please reach out ahead of time so we can get it changed before the meeting, so it's just easier. Thanks.
Yeah, good comment. We get our fire reports, meeting pay, we'll talk about that more a little later. And on occasion, there will be some expenditures for something that we've been working on. I don't know, maybe a public works project or something that may be in there that's, we can always pull out, right? So when we get to a consent agenda, if there's something in there that you want to take separately, motion to take that out, and we'll work on that separately. But otherwise, to move us on. There, I just took a whole lot of time to move us on. Any questions? All right, so seeing none, consent agenda, happy to entertain any motions on that.
Motion to approve.
Support.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Cody, support by Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to our new business. First item is introduction, first reading of the township initiated rezoning of lot 943 Isabella Road from I-1 to R1. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you and good evening, everybody. There's a report for this item that begins on page 31 of your agenda packet, and the administration is asking the board to introduce and conduct a first reading for the proposed PREZ 24-01. It's a request to rezone a little over a half an acre at 943 South Isabella Road. It's on the east side of the road, north of River Road, from light industrial, which is the L1, to R1 rural residential. This property is currently part of an active ordinance enforcement action. It's because the property owners were from a it's not a farm, so it's a non-farm raising of chicken, ducks, other fowl. It's not allowed. It's not an allowable land use in the I-1 district. The existing residence is a protected legal non-conforming use, so we're not talking about the residence. We're not talking about the building, the home. We're talking about what's going on the property. So that protection for the non-conforming as it relates to the home does not apply to the non-farming of animals per our zoning code. During the regular August Planning Commission meeting, the family who is here here tonight and spoke earlier spoke during public comment about their interest in continuing that activity. Some of the reasons were articulated tonight earlier on. And they asked the Planning Commission to consider initiating a rezoning action for this lot from the I-1 to the R1, where customary agricultural operations, including the keeping of chicken and ducks and other fowl, are allowed as a principal permitted use. After some discussion, the Planning Commission at their September 17th meeting, they discussed this idea and they deliberated. They made reference to the master plan. If you look at the report, this is property that is very close to rural buffer areas that we want to maintain. And the Planning Commission adopted a motion to initiate a rezoning process. So then staff took that motion and began to work it, brought the item to the Planning Commission at their October 15th meeting. There was a public hearing, discussion, deliberations by the Planning Commission, and they unanimously approved a motion to recommend to this body, the Board of Trustees, the approval of this zoning request. If this first reading and introduction is approved tonight, the administration will be back in front of you, likely at your December meeting, where we would ask you to hold a second reading and consider adoption of this text amendment to the zoning code. So that's the background. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have on this matter. Again, there's an introduction, first reading that we're asking you to conduct tonight. If you do, then we'll continue to move this item forward to your December meeting. Thank you.
I'd like to move to introduce and conduct a first reading for the proposed PREZ 24-01, request to rezone the 0.53 acre lot at 943 South Isabella Road, PID 14-001-30-004-01 on the east side of South Isabella Road, north of East River Road, in the southwest quarter of Section 1, from I-1 Light Industrial District to R1 Rural Residential District.
Support.
Got a motion by Lannon. I heard support by Brown first. Consider the first reading in process. Discussion?
Yes, I was on the planning commission, and I do understand why we voted yes, based on our master plan. I do have a few concerns, though. One neighbor felt like they needed to build a very expensive fence to prevent the chickens and ducks from entering their property, that was an issue. Another neighbor on the other side was having issues with the same, along with the smell. So I think it's very important that everybody, that they're good neighbors. Not to say I know they're not bad neighbors. I don't mean it like that, but I mean being good neighbors. And there was issue. I do not want to take away the ducks and the chickens from the family, but in the same breath, one thing that I will be doing is reaching out to the neighbors to see, it's been several weeks, to see has there been any improvements? Are they still having issues? Is there still a considerable stench? What they're experiencing. So I want to make sure before I say yes that there's been some corrections. Because once we say yes, the neighbors can technically put more chickens on. And there's really not a lot you can do. Chickens or ducks or whatever that's allowed. So that was a concern of mine. I think I made a comment at the end of our meeting the day we voted yes. I won't say a concern. I just want to follow up with the current neighbors to see what they've experienced over the last several weeks.
Is there a limit of how many chickens and ducks you can have per land if it's not considered a farm? I mean,
I don't believe so.
Yeah, as I understand it, the R1, there's not limits.
okay.
So if we were to vote yes, that could happen.
And there's no recourse in that.
There's no
case.
recourse. I'm not saying
Right.
it will. I
Right.
mean, I think we have good people here in our audience. But it could. So we have to. I want to take the consideration of the neighbors.
Clerk Cody?
I'm looking at it as, it's a light industrial district, and it's going along with master plan into changing it into the rural residential district. And if you just look at the land and not what they're wanting to use it for, what it should be in that specific location, it goes along with it. So that's what I am looking at. So, I mean, just saying, that's how I look at it.
Do we have a chicken ordinance for,
Yes, so
For
in,
this area?
and I, correct me if I get this wrong, but in like the R2, R3, there's exceptions. I think it's up to 4 fowl. They must be caged at all times for educational purposes only. But getting into like an I1 industrial, no farming. Rural, residential 1 becomes much more like agriculture, where the limits are taken off of farming activities. Did I misstate anything? Does that answer your question?
yes, I'm curious because I feel like I guess my question is the 975 South Isabella, is this the same incident or is this a different incident? Because if you look at page 3 of the ordinance enforcement activities, it's talking about another chicken non-conforming incident.
As I understand it, I went and visited the properties. So where the rezone is in question, two properties to the south on Isabella is where I believe that write-up is on.
Okay.
Because they also had issues with like goats and other things. Am I misstating anything again? Because I wasn't involved in the enforcement of any of that, but I heard stories from the neighborhood there of that particular property. But that's a different property.
Okay. So it sounds like this is a common occurrence, that this is happening quite a lot, where we're having people who are not zoned to having small livestock?
I don't think it's real. 3 of them?
There's one.
There's
Currently?
3 of them on here right now. So,
But I don't think that's typically it's not like we always have 3 that we're enforcing.
I was just
assuming.
There
wondering,
have been
'cause-
4 total in the last couple of years.
because
that's
I know
helpful.
that like in where I'm from, we actually had urban chicken ordinances where you could maintain a small flock in your backyard for the purpose of providing food for your family. Maybe that's something we should look at in the future. Rather than like, because if this is going to continue to come up, maybe this isn't a question of rezoning, but a question of passing some sort of chicken rules or something.
Yeah, I think my guess is most neighborhoods,
Have covenants.
as long as they're contained, is the issue, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say where, but I have chickens in my neighborhood.
I am the chicken lady.
And I have a little bit of, I really like my neighbors, but they roam pretty free, and they lost one the other day because a dog got to it. And that's because their chickens are getting where they shouldn't be. But in any
I
event.
find it very funny that we have 3
Yeah.
chicken incidences on the agenda tonight.
Yes. 2 of them kind of related because they're practically next door, not
Yes.
quite. I will just say that I got a call on this before the planning commission, the week before the planning commission had your first rezoning meeting on this. And from one neighbor, also talked to another neighbor. I actually went out and to the properties, took a look around. So I've seen the landscape, if you will. I didn't see the goat. Apparently the goat is gone, but there were some geese there. Not at this property, but the one south of there. In any event, I've really struggled with this because of the conversations I've had with neighbors. But I'm also have experience as a planning commissioner, and as Clerk Cody said, I understand the master plan argument, and that makes sense to me. But I also, as a trustee, want to make sure that I'm helping protect the other property owners too. And so I have very mixed feelings about this. As Trustee Therian said, I do not want to take this from this family, but in the same light, I hate for the other neighbors to have to maybe deal with what potentially could be worse, right? In rezoning to an R1. So I'm really struggling with it. I certainly haven't made any decisions myself. That's kind of where I sit today. Trustee Brown, you look like you had something.
Nope, I'm
No?
all set, yeah.
Trustee Lannon?
Yeah, I had an opportunity today to review the October 15th Planning Commission meeting. And at the heart of the issue is making a zoning change. They use the term rural buffer. We often talk about buffering from one zone to another to make a transition that's less intrusive. We also talk about preserving agriculture in the township. You know, we're trying to save what agriculture areas we can. Also, you know, light industrial can be a little obnoxious to neighbors too, depending on what's going on in the industrial areas. So nothing's really been discussed on that side of what could take place. And as far as going with the straight zoning aspect, it does make sense to me. A person can't live to their neighbor's expectations, though. They need to live what their life is. Of course, as James said, you know, be a good neighbor. And everything that I learned from the correspondence was the zoning change makes sense. the neighbors or the folks whose properties in question have been good neighbors in the sense that if there has been a complaint, it's been addressed. I know that there can be smells, and not just from the animals themselves per se. I live in proximity to some farming area on the state property, and they'll spread foul feces on the fields. And you know, that can last for days and days. It's a pretty stringent odor, but you know, it's farmers need to be farmers. And then the aspect of, we're looking at a very small piece of property who the people live in very close proximity of these animals. If there's going to be smells, they're going to be on the receiving end of that first and foremost. Kind of talking about a neighbor that spoke at that planning commission meeting, you know, they requested that their piece of property be zoned from the I-1 to the R1 as well. And with everything I've seen, the matter at hand is a zoning issue. Likewise, everybody has to be a good neighbor. Your neighbors change. And I just support that we have a first reading.
Any other comments today?
To be clear, the first reading just means we're going to have more discussion.
Yeah, it's really just a public process.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
if we choose to, we can act on this in a second reading,
Okay.
or we can delay or not act. I mean,
Right.
it really is up to this board, but if we conduct and approve the first reading, then the natural course of business is to conduct a second one
Okay.
later and consider adoption. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I was going to ask you to explain that.
Yeah, I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
Trustee Lannon?
One last comment that this was reviewed by the Planning Commission, and it was voted to move it to the board for consideration. They were in favor of it.
For us to do the reading.
They were in favor, they were in agreement that changing the I-1 to an R1 was acceptable. They voted unanimously to do that, which means then they move that to our board for approval. And we generally put quite a bit of faith in what the Planning Commission's recommendations are.
Agreed. All right, so we have, unless there's other discussion, we've conducted a first reading, provided we all approve it, that we did that. So unless there's objection, we'll call the vote. Lisa, or Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call of the board? Everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rogers,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Trustee Lay,
Yes.
and Trustee Thering.
Yes.
All yeses.
Motion passes unanimously. The first reading has been conducted. That moves us to item 11B on the agenda, one-year extension of the fire service agreement with the city of Mount Pleasant. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you care to introduce this?
Thank you. And the report begins on page 39 of your agenda packet. As most of us know, Union Township has been receiving fire services, fire protection services, and via contractual relationship with the city of Mount Pleasant for decades. The funding for this service has been supported by a dedicated millage that the citizens most recently approved by vote in 2018. It was a 70-30 favorable margin I think that highlights the community's support for this arrangement. The current agreement was approved in November of 2019. It expired at the end of 2023. In November of 23, the board approved a one-year extension of the agreement. At the time, the city was working with one of their consultants conducting a fire department operational study they were trying to assess the current and future needs of the department. While that study has since been completed, the city is still working on implementation aspects, trying to decide what out of that report they think they might want to implement, what they may be able to implement. And so with that in mind, we're recommending another one-year extension. The contract that's in place, that's in your packet, remains in full force. This is extending it for the second time for one additional year. There's a table in your notes. The cost of this is for 2025 is $807,458. That's almost 4% less than what we were paying in 2024, so that's a good thing. This extension would become effective January 1, 2025, carry through till December 31, 2025. Once the city is done with their implementation analysis, Union Township being one of their largest service areas, we will have some input into that and how that may or may not affect the township. I recommend that this contract be extended for one additional year at $807,458. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approval of a one-year extension to the Fire Protection Service Agreement with the City of Mount Pleasant in the amount of $807,458.
Second.
Motion by Brown, support by Rogers. Discussion? Trustee Lannon?
So I'd just like to declare that I've been employed by the city of Mount Pleasant as a firefighter. I'm in my 33rd year there. I've voted on these types of issues in the past as the board didn't feel I had a direct conflict of interest, even though that I'm part of the city who would be operating under this one-year extension. So I'd just like to offer an opportunity for you to either determine that I should abstain from voting, or if you don't feel I have a conflict of any significance, that I do my job as a trustee and vote on the issues in front of us.
I'm glad you brought that up before we got into debate.
Yeah.
Anybody see conflicts with Trustee Lannon, as stated? And you also, just for clarification, you might be operating under this contract, but you also operate directly for the city as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Independent of this contract also.
I believe Mr.
That is true. I am on the fire department, but I do have,
And who's paying the particular bill at a particular time may come from either place, really.
correct.
Trustee Therian?
I was just gonna say, I believe Trustee Lander would act as a trustee in the best interest of the township in his voting, so I personally would have no issue with him participating in the discussion and vote.
I concur. Are there objections?
I'll speak for Trustee Lannon. I've known him long before I was a trustee or he was a trustee. And I have no issues at all with having him go as a trustee on our board, even though he is a Mount Pleasant City firefighter, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Do you understand why he's doing that?
Yes, it's
Okay.
it could potentially be a conflict of interest.
Okay, I'm just
Yes,
wanted to make sure.
No issue for me.
I'm fine with it.
I have no
Okay,
issue.
so we have no objections, correct? Okay, you're good. Thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that up. I just have a question that's, I think, related to this, if I may. So the original millage language wasn't tied to the city specifically, was it? Because we asked the voters for the 2.5
No.
mills.
No, it was not.
It was not, okay. It was
Well,
just,
I wrote it. I don't believe I put that in there.
yeah, the
No.
original millage language was for fire protection,
Yeah,
and how it got implemented is irrelevant.
correct.
I read the millage language just today, and it's not specific to a service provider.
Okay, and I didn't expect that it would be, but I was just curious. And it's nice to see a cost go down, for once.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Trustee Lannon?
So if this extension happens to go through, would that mean that we would be seeing budget adjustments on the fire fund and possibly the east and west DDA?
Yes, as indicated on page 40 of the report under the costs, it is recognized that the savings to the fire fund in the approximate amount of $56,000 would be recognized, and it would be formally recognized in the mid-year budget amendment. And the east and the west make a payment to the fire fund to support the fire services that are provided to those districts. There's likely to be adjustments in the east and west DDA, because I believe their payment is a function of the total payment, but I'd have to look at that a little closer, but it would be a safe assumption.
Thank you.
More discussion? All right, anybody not understand the motion? Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call on the motion?
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Lay,
Oh, Blake? Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Treasurer Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
and Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
And
Thank
I
you.
failed to mention, excuse me, that the
Sure.
city approved this, their half of the agreement at their last meeting, which I think was about 2 weeks ago.
Thank you much. That brings us to item 11C on our agenda, resolution designating Treasurer Rogers as check signer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Stuhldreher, do you want to introduce anything in this?
I do not. I think it's self-explanatory, and the reasons why are evident.
Very good. Happy to entertain any motions regarding this.
I'd like to make a motion to approve adding newly elected treasurer Lori Rogers as a signatory to all of the township's bank accounts with Isabella Bank and Isabella Community Credit Union. Also to approve removing outgoing treasurer Kimberly Rice as a signatory from all the accounts.
Support.
Motion by Brown, support by Thering. Any discussion? Trustee Lannon?
Yes, it doesn't really, well, first question. Does Treasurer Rogers and her deputy, are they the only two people in the township who have the authority to sign checks?
I do as well.
Okay.
And-
I thought maybe there'd be some additional designated people in our township, but,
And I believe we
So-
added that like 3 years ago or so? Does that sound correct?
probably closer to 4. but,
4, okay.
Or more than that.
Some townships, those are the only 2 people who can sign a check.
We want 2 people to be able, a particular check, a single check does not require 2 signatures, it requires 1. And 9 times out of 10, that's signed by the treasurer. There are times when the treasurer may not be available for any reason, number of reasons, ill, vacation, what have you. And so we want to be able to keep the system moving, people getting paid, vendors getting paid. And in those cases, I will sign the checks. It is rare. Treasurer Rogers and I went by the banks yesterday and got all that paperwork in order, signed the signature cards. They still use signature cards. So that's all in place, and then this is the last piece. And what I've just said applies to payroll checks and accounts payable checks. It does not apply to tax fund, checks paid out of the tax fund. That's the sole prerogative of the treasurer, and she is the only one authorized to sign checks being drawn against the tax fund. And that is not new.
Mm-hmm. But just for clarification, her deputy has that authority as well, correct?
We didn't list that in
No.
this.
No.
Currently, no.
Okay.
Which I think would be my preference. Can I ask why you?
Well, it was just something that came up through the training seminar yesterday, that to me it was inferred, is the way I interpreted, that the deputy is an extension of the treasurer. The deputy treasurer is an extension of the treasurer.
That would be a true statement from the perspective of the local governing body. If you're a banker, not so much. They have their own rules and requirements, and they don't always align. Treasurer Rogers' deputy can sign any check that she signs. Whether the bank will cash it or not, with that individual not being a signatory on their signature card, they probably would not if their tellers are that in tune.
Okay. So then, I put the deputy in there on the first go-round. Truly, it's the treasurer and the manager
Yes.
are the only 2 people who can sign checks here.
Yeah,
Okay.
from the bank's perspective.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
We good? Anybody not clear on the motion? For Cody, would you do a roll call of the board, please?
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Lay,
Yes.
Trustee Lannan,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Treasurer Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
and Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
So we can make payroll again now.
We can't wait.
Yeah, I've got some bills to pay. No. That brings us to item 11D on the agenda, Policy Governance 2.8. Real briefly, part of the onboarding packet should have included policy governance. I'm hoping our incumbent members are intimately familiar with our policy governance manual. We can have some deep, long discussions about that later, but the process of the next 3 items on our new business have to do with reviewing our policies, right? And that's the policies of how we govern and how the organization is to be implementing our policies. Is that enough at this point? Okay. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce 2.8? This is in your area.
Thank you. Again, a report on page 48 of your agenda packet. November, according to the policy review calendar, is the month that the board reviews the administration's compliance with particularly policy 2.8 that's labeled, titled, the Emergency Township Manager Succession. I'll read the policy wording, it's not very long. In order to protect the board from sudden loss of township manager services, the township manager shall not operate without a written plan identifying no fewer than 2 other named executives familiar with board and township manager issues and processes. I interpret that policy to mean that a plan with specific, says named individuals, I use positions, is critical to continuing to achieve the organization's missions and goals and maintain daily operations in the event of unforeseen circumstances, death, disability, unplanned extended absences. I feel this is a reasonable justification and interpretation. It's based on the wording of the policy itself and general principles that are involved with emergency succession planning. In your packet, there is the township manager succession policy that was originally adopted in November of 2019. It was amended in November of 2023. And so it's one thing, of course, to have a policy of who the board is going to turn to if something happens to their manager. Then it becomes the manager's responsibility to make sure those positions are able to do that job when called upon. And as you'll find for the new members over the course of time, and as the existing members have seen, when I'm out on extended vacations, particularly as I move farther away from central Michigan, I might go to Canada for snowmobiling, or I might go out west to visit a brother. I will formally name a acting township manager. You've seen them at this seat during meetings. That's one way that they get up to speed, should they be called upon with little notice. And then during the, I'll say, conduct of day-to-day operations, I do very little without informing the positions that are part of this policy and on what's going on broadly. Sometimes more specifically, I have one-on-one meetings routinely with all the department directors that are listed here. And then we also have group staff meetings routinely, either scheduled for the whole year. So I think it does create a environment where the positions that are named in the policy, which is the Public Services Department Director, Community and Economic Development Director, and the Finance Department Director, any one of those I think could fill the seat while a more permanent replacement is found. There's no order to these. It's not choose the first one at the top. It's these three are available to you, but you do have a limited amount of time, 3 days, to take action and get somebody appointed. So we feel, the administration feels, I feel that we're in compliance with this policy. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have on it.
Any questions? Trustee Lana?
Go ahead, please.
I think we talked about this before, but I wrote this down. Obviously, I'm very happy with what we have in front of us. Should we possibly by chance, because of this policy, put in there an option D of, let's say for some reason A, B, and C are just not going to work, and D could be we could choose somebody from the outside?
I think we have that latitude.
Do we have that latitude?
Yeah, this is more, I believe, emergency situation.
Yeah.
Or something were to happen to the manager, incapacitated or something, that somebody is cross-trained, as the manager was describing,
Right.
they're kept up to speed so they can step in. But at any point, this board deem and say, well, we're gonna have to fill that spot in a different way.
Okay.
We're not locked into this. This provides our manager a requirement to make sure that essentially, I'm gonna, cross-training is happening. Is that a reasonable perspective from how you read it?
Yes, you'd say you could use cross-training. I would probably describe it more as making sure there are positions in the organization available to the board to call upon in the case of an emergency to keep the train moving.
So being policy, this doesn't marry us to these three choices.
No, it is more instructing the manager that he has to make sure this stuff is in place, so in the event, we know we've got qualified individuals to step up. But if something were to happen, we could pick one of these people for 3 days and then say, well, we're bringing in an interim manager if that's what we chose.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Trustee Lannon.
So Mark, I appreciate you expanding on your explanation. I was gonna quiz you a little bit about your coaching to some of the other department heads that you named, activities you go through to take them beyond their normal duties, but you explained that very well, and I appreciate that. But something that came to my mind to answer question one a little bit, and if it's at all makes any sense or reason to you guys, we're talking about a manager succession plan, but there's some unique duties to some of the folks on the management team. Most particular, in my mind, would be the clerk and the treasurer, but maybe the supervisor as well. That maybe we should consider expanding this policy to address management team. Again, it would probably be a rare instance, but you want to plan a little bit for the low frequency, higher important things. For instance, say our manager did either decide to leave, get ill, whatever comes up, and he's not able to do his job. And let's say our treasurer has something going on in their world too that has taken them out. Now we don't have a signature for signing checks, as just an example, as we spoke about earlier. And it may seem far-fetched, and it might not even be in this policy where you would do it, but should we at all consider talking about succession plan for management team as well as the manager?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So as far as the clerk, the deputy clerk is trained and capable of running an election. She's got just as much training and experience that I have. So it would be okay if something were to happen to me, and then you would be able to find another clerk or have another election held to get another clerk. So as far as that part of it is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like,
Yeah. Wouldn't be the same for me? My deputy
you
can step
pretty
in?
much train them
And
just
then
so
you
it's
get
a
subs in
backup
there.
plan.
So
But they
I
won't-
understand that. I'm just saying, should we develop the policy further to put that in writing? So it's
That's
clearly
more-
understood.
It's
and-
more of a state requirement, so I don't think it needs to be in the
Yeah.
policy.
Sure.
Oh.
The treasurer and the clerk are required to name a deputy, and they have all the authorities that the office has. They're not allowed to vote here. But if there's a vacancy of any of these 7 positions, there's a method to resolve that vacancy in state statute, and it's pretty specific, and we've worked through that in the past. We have had a couple trustees, I think, resign their position midterm, and between the operational backups that are created, say in signatures, for instance, we have, I think, coverage there. But I just want to bring that up because the policy, whatever you might do, is not going to get in the way of how to fill a vacancy per state statute.
Right. So my simple thought was, do we continue on with a .24 or whatever and just identify that in the event and then list the state statute so it's clear to all of us how to move forward when you're in that critical time of needing to do something quickly. It's clear to us, what we reference, so we do it correctly.
I think I've been through it enough. I'm not sure I need it, but
No, I think there's enough.
what's
I
that?
mean, I think the things are in place, right?
In particular for
Yes.
your offices?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is in place,
I mean.
but it's
it-
not
State law.
documented.
I mean, it is.
It is.
It's a state
It's just not in our
requirement. It's
policy
just not in a policy.
Right. So we operate under policy governance. And this pretty much directs us. So again, if you guys don't think it's needed, that's perfectly fine. I was just looking at a way to make our policies more complete and build on things that would take away questions, confusions, give you direction. But, so I was just bringing that out.
Trustee Therian?
I actually, when it comes to policy, I like things like Trustee Lannon. I want to see them on paper, even though we all know it's our policy.
You
To
want
have it, just to have it on a sheet of paper, I think is in our governance policy. I'm not against that.
I don't like it.
No.
I like going by state statute, and then we'll have to change it every time it changes, and then we'll have to change the
What
policy.
do you have to change? You don't have to change the names.
No, you'll have to change the requirements. If you're writing the state statute inside this policy, which is too detailed of information, I think, for a policy. This is like a guide.
You can't, you
For
couldn't put
policy
on there
government.
reference state statute.
That would be it. Reference the state statute.
I just think it's too much. It's a policy governance guide. And this is talking about the manager. We talk about the other boards in the different section of the, so it'll talk about the management committee, it'll talk about the, there's different sections of it, and when we get further into it, you'll see where it will say about the supervisor, about the clerk, about the treasurer. It has specifics about those later in the policy governance. This one's specifically saying that the manager has a plan for if he was to go away, what would happen.
And there is no state guidance on that
No,
as far as
that's
statute. right.
something we need to
Right.
have as a board.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I wasn't saying it needed to be right at this point. Just a thought that,
So it's,
did we want to?
I think once we go
reference?
further in,
Right.
you'll see more
Yeah.
into it.
okay, that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't know exact pages or anything, but
It's in
I
there.
just
And
know
it-
we'll
it's
talk
not
about
here
each
for a
section
motion,
more.
and I don't want to belabor discussion. It was just,
A thought,
as I
yeah.
was critiquing, I jotted it down and wanted to bring that forward if we were missing an element that could benefit us.
I'm hearing,
Just
I
that
mean,
simple.
maybe once we get to the other sections, add it in that section, that would be fine. But like, this is for the manager plan part of it.
That's correct.
I like to keep
There'll be an
things in section.
opportunity to review sections 3.6 and 3.7, which is the appropriate place to have this discussion,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Good.
you good?
Good.
All right, so, the policy, is in front of us. A key is, the interpretation, which I'll explain in a minute, but I guess, we're gonna go through a process of asking questions about the policy. and this is something we do every month. We review a different section of our policy manual, looking at, are we living up to it essentially? If we're not, what do we need to do that? Are there changes that need to be made, such as Trustee Lanning was suggesting? Is there something that shouldn't be there, or something that should be there that it doesn't have? So this report was due in November. I'm assuming there's no objection to, it's not late. So the manager's interpretation, do you feel that it interpreted the intent of the policy?
Yes.
And that, I just want to point out, to me, this is always one of the most important things to look at, because we're asking the manager to interpret what we as a board have laid out as policy. And is the manager reflecting in his own words, or her words, what we intend, right? Do you feel that the interpretation is justified? Is there proof here that it's justified? And to me, the proof is the succession plan paper that we have here.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you feel there's any portion of the policy that's not addressed in this?
I do not feel that way.
No.
Anyone feel we're not in compliance?
No.
And then, I think we're good. If there's no objections, we'll move on to 11E, Policy Governance 3.8, and we'll do 3.9 kind of together. So we'll be addressing items E and F. And this is more for us as far as how we deal with committees. I'm assuming everybody's read this. And the intent of this section, as I kind of interpret it, is that essentially gives us a guideline that if we're going to use committees, what are their authorities, what are their boundaries? And we currently have no committees that this board has stood up. The last one I can think of was some years ago, Sustainability Committee. They kind of saw the end of what their charge was, and they were disbanded. But what's important, I think, for us to know is that if we feel there's a task that needs to be done, we can lift up a committee, whether it be from members at large, or we make that committee from members from this board, or some combination thereof. So with that, I'm going to ask questions about this. And I know this is going to be hard for the newly elected, whether or not you believe we're in strict compliance with this policy as stated. But I'm going to ask a question. Anybody have objection or believe we are not in compliance?
We are in compliance.
We're in
We are.
compliance, especially we have no committees right now, so it's kind of hard to not be in compliance.
Correct.
I'm just going to jump to item 4. I think the big thing I look for in these also is there something missing in the policy? Is there something that we shouldn't have? Because policy governance is intended to be kind of a living document. And as we go through this review process of reviewing pieces of it throughout the year, we have the opportunity at those times to make changes. We also try to visit the entire policy governance at once, usually once per year, and that's an opportunity to look at ends or policy changes. So I just want to ask if there's anything that anybody feels we're missing or maybe doesn't need to be there.
I'm satisfied.
Okay. So in the back of your policy governance manual is a calendar. I wonder if mine has it. Usually is there, yes. There's a calendar of each section that we're reviewing each month.
Oh, good.
And so usually in the second meeting of each month, we tackle part of 2, section 2, 3, and or 4. If I may, this board is also, if you've read through the policy governance, there's a section about ends. Ends are not exactly goals, but for a bad synonym, goal is reasonable description. Ends are something you never achieve. That is the top level priorities of this board. And so we will have an opportunity in the spring to meet with all of our boards and talk with them and begin to look at what are the priorities of this board moving forward. So we'll have that opportunity in a few months to do that. So read this. Trustee Lannon.
So, as far as finishing up with the 3.8 and 3.9, do we have a plan for a scheduled group opportunity to do a workshop on policy governance? Is that's in the plan?
I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah.
Can I table that for a bit?
You can.
Okay. So we'll move on then to extended public comment, item 12. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 8:50 PM.
There's nobody online.
Let the record show there's nobody online and currently nobody else present from the public. And seeing nobody bursting through the front door, we'll close extended public comment at 8:50 PM. That brings us to item 13, manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher.
Thank you, and I just want to congratulate Trustee Lay, Lannon, Treasurer Rogers on their election. I look forward to working with this new board, and I wish I could find a number. You know, it's the 142nd Congress or the 232nd Trustee Board. There is a number, but I don't know what it is. But this board is new, and I look forward to working with the board collectively. Make sure everybody knows that I work for you as a board. I understand you have individual needs. I also understand that the board as a collective has needs. If any one of you individually would, anytime you want to contact me, please do so. You have my cell, you have my email, call, text, email, what have you. You can stop by. If you'd like some extended time with me, it's best to, I think, for all of us to schedule that. Although if you do come in, and Trustee Thering has taken advantage of this several times, if you do just pop in, we may end up speaking for 45 minutes, which is fine. If I have something on my calendar or I can't do that, I'll just respectfully let you know. Because I work for the entire board, there's often situations where I may get an inquiry or want to ask me about something from one of you as an individual. And don't be offended if my reply goes back to the entire board, because I need to balance the two things. If it's simple and it's, mundane, you'll just get a quick reply back with me. I'm not going to bother everybody's inboxes or texts with extraneous things. But it'll often be up to me that I'll go, well, I think this is something that the entire board, is interested in or needs. A lot of times different people have the same question. So it's a way of getting the answer out to everybody. But I look forward to, I do have a one-on-one scheduled with Trustee Lay next week, which I'm looking forward to, and extend that invitation to the entire board. Thank you, and I look forward to working with this board, and congratulations to you three.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Can I comment on one thing that you talked about? So, manager described, I'm going to use an example. Trustee Therian sends an email with a question. Manager just says, yeah, this is one the entire board should hear, the question and the response. All I want to tell you is be careful from the email from the manager. You do not want to get into a debate via email. That's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. If we want to have discussions on it, we do that here. So don't get into, the quorum for us is 4, right? So if 4 of us are in some form of communication, like the tax, I said I'm excited to be here tonight. We can't be doing business, right?
Right.
Okay, so just want to make sure everybody's clear that it's not uncommon in those situations where the manager sends those out that there's no replies back, other than maybe a thank you. Okay.
Good.
That moves us on to final board member comment. Trustee Brown.
Oh, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And we're gonna start getting the white stuff, so be safe out there on the roads. And that's it. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Trustee Lannon?
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to just thank the citizens who elected all the board members here. From me personally, I love to listen to the individual folks who have questions, concerns, ideas. But knowing that I will always take what you have to say, but have to consider what's best for the greater good of the community. So, just that being out there, feel free to contact me with anything that you may have. Secondly, the manager's report was so helpful in this board packet, especially to get in tune with what's been going on from each department or aspect of his duties, and really highlights the many things that have gone on, are going on, and we can plan to see what's coming down the road. So that's really helpful. And for all of you guys, this doesn't happen very often, but it has in the past, that there could be a possibility that I could get a fire call during a board meeting, and I would certainly evaluate the importance of me responding to my firefighter emergency responder duties, and may walk out at some point in time. I'd certainly weigh against decisions that need to be made at the board level too, but I'm kind of in tune to available personnel at any given time. Sometimes the coverage can be quite limited. Sometimes we have a full roster, so it could happen. Thank you.
Very good. Trustee Lay?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who voted for me. I was very humbled by your decision to let me represent you. I'm looking forward to working with all of you to help make Charter Township of Union the best place that we could possibly make it to live and work.
Awesome, thanks. Treasurer Rogers?
Well, yes, thank you. I was so excited to be involved in the whole process. I learned a lot and talked to many residents and business owners about life in Union Township, and I'm thankful for the votes, and I'm thankful to be on this side of the table. It's a lot more interesting over here than going to the meetings. I like these meetings. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to moving on and learning and giving it my all.
It's nice to have you on this side of the table, too.
Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Therian?
Yes, I would just like to affirm Manager Stuhldreier's comments in regards to scheduling conversations with him when you feel you have concerns or questions or just need information. I've had, over the last 4 years, several meetings with the manager. He's given me quite a bit of his time during his busy day. I've always felt like I've come out of the conversation or out of the room better informed and ready to make a good decision for the township. So I really appreciate that and encourage anyone to take advantage of the opportunity.
Thank you. Clerk Cody?
That sounded great. I just want to say welcome to the new board members. I enjoy working with everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I told you I was gonna talk a lot tonight, so I added just a few things. Again, it's more bookkeeping stuff, but my hope is that, the onboarding is kinda like a fire hose, I think, at first. It's tough. Trying to make this successful as quick as we all can be, right? So, December 18th is our next meeting. We only have one scheduled in December, which obviously, usually we have two every month. So at that meeting, we talked about it earlier, we'll make some appointments, at least to some of the ones where we need to. We'll be reviewing the budget at the next meeting, correct? That's on your agenda?
Thanks for reminding me. That was one of my comments in manager comments. The budget was approved by the prior board in October. And it's what the board would like to do. I could meet with the 3 new board members without your time, if you wanted to do it that way. I could meet individually. I could carve out some time at a upcoming board meeting if you wanted to hear about the budget and ask questions about it at a full board meeting. We do have several items on the agenda, business items in December. But I'll be happy to do whatever the board, or there wouldn't be a quorum if I met with the 3 new members. So it's kind of maybe up to those 3 or the board.
Right.
Yeah, let me ask you 3 how you would like to do that.
I think we should all review the budget to see what questions we have. And trust the prior board who has spent enough time to have approved it. We just need to see if we have questions about it. And then I've got 2 questions, Mark, to coordinate 3 schedules, 4 schedules might be harder than just one-on-one.
It's a good thought if you want to take time to look at the budget. There's a lot of information, a lot of background in there. The highlights are at the front of it. And then if you have questions, you can just ask me.
Or it might be this thing of, we send you our questions and then you can answer the 3 of us once, because
Yeah.
I might have the other question later.
Yeah.
So let me ask questions of the incumbents that were part of the decision to approve that budget. Do you feel like you would like to be in those discussions again, hold a meeting for the new members? I just want to make sure that the new members had a chance to go through that budget in detail. It is a budget that if this board doesn't agree with the previous board, we do have the rights to change it. What are your feelings on it?
I'll leave it up to the new members.
So you don't need to be part of it.
I'm fine with being a part of it if they would like to
I don't
make
either.
it.
So
I-
why
we-
don't the 4
I-
of you
we-
work out what
yeah.
works best for the
Yeah.
We
4
picked
of
it
you?
apart.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
been enough time.
Right.
yes,
I'm good.
okay.
I-
I just want to make sure you had that opportunity, so, great.
If it's on
Um,
the agenda, then that's fine.
Okay.
The policy governance, trustee Landon, you asked about that. Manager and I we've had a couple meetings where we've discussed this. We talked about it again today, and I think we'll try to get some training in that for January, February. I'm trying to remember our conversation from today, somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah, I'm starting to envision a special meeting in January, not one of our regular Wednesday meetings. And it would be an opportunity for, I think I can do it, or some members of the board probably can do it, to begin to explain the whys, wherefores, and what it's all about. The language is, sometimes a bit difficult, ends versus goals, those kind of things. But I think it would be beneficial to the board and the administration to spend hour and a half, say at Jameson one night, kind of going over this model that the township uses that defines how you govern, and also defines the roles of the policymakers versus the administration. But I can see that happening in January.
So if we were to pick a special meeting a Wednesday, being that that's when we normally meet, does that not work for anybody? If we pick the middle Wednesday?
That would be very beneficial.
What?
If we were to pick the middle Wednesday between our first and second meeting in January, if we pick that Wednesday,
I'll
since
be later.
Is the 15th.
15th?
Oh, in January?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on a cruise.
You are?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we, what I've found is, trying to get
Doodle poll.
calendaring in this environment.
Yeah.
We'll just let Tara send out a doodle poll, and we'll do what best we can, and as many people can attend.
Perfect.
You'll get something from the office, several dates in January, maybe early February, but we'll give several options.
And then prior to that, if we add to the December agenda, a high-level look at it, at the policy governance, that gives us a chance as a board to adopt that as a governing policy. And then the training would allow us to become tooled up to know how to live within it and begin to make changes where we feel it needs to be made. Does that make sense? Okay. And then last, this is bookkeeping stuff again. I'm sorry, I'm taking extra long on some things tonight on purpose. We started off the meeting a little bit during the board appointments. We dealt, at least temporarily, with the Planning Commission and the EDA. I am permanently assigned to the Board of Review as a secretary, non-voting by law. But our policy governance has in it, let me take a step back. Part of the goal of one of the portions of the policy is to make sure that we have good relationships with our neighbors, the city, the county, the tribe, CMU, et cetera, and that we're informed of what's going on in our community at large. And so what the board decided years ago, and this has been policy for some time, is create liaison roles where we appoint board members to be the liaison, and I'll pick county as an example. If you're the liaison for the county, you're responsible for going to those meetings and then reporting back to this board so that we can all have a better feeling for what's going on in the county, and likewise for city, and likewise. So I'm gonna list those out. And so unless we change that policy, we are obligated to appoint those liaisons. And so I want to list them out because I didn't want to rush this process, because I want everybody the opportunity to think about where their desires might be. Does it work in your schedule? For example, the county meets, I think at 5 twice a month. Maybe that doesn't work for you, so you're not a good choice for county liaison. So I'm just going to list these out for now, and we'll deal with this maybe in January. And if we can just keep existing appointments where they are for now, then in January we can make sure that our new members have opportunities to be put on. Is that reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Lannon?
I believe one of our outgoing trustees had responsibilities.
Yep, and I was going to address that now.
Okay.
So there are three that I was concerned about. Election Commission, but we don't have to deal with that immediately. The County Road Commission, you've been doing that, and then Trustee Smith took that
Yeah,
on. So we do have staff that attends that regularly. But if someone has a desire to go to Road Commission for now, feel free. The other one was Isabella County Commission. Trustee Smith was also liaison for that. And I kind of thought with the county and all that's going on, we had 4 of us there last meeting,
Yeah, it was
that
an
we
important
might
one.
just have some of us there anyways, because there's important stuff going
Yeah.
on. Yes.
I wrote county and then road commission and then you said county again.
Oh, did I say, yeah.
That's fine, commissioners, but
It was a
not
lot.
my
County
misunderstanding.
Road Commission. I
The-
think that's.
It was- I
right.
thought you
and
said
then the
election.
sidewalk
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Is
that's-
that not
Sidewalk.
there?
Sidewalks
Committee?
disbanded. at
It's
this point.
gone, okay.
Yeah, that committee is disbanded. And
Yes.
that's
That's
actually.
one of the ones that were, yeah.
Right. So I think the only two we're not filling at this point, when I went through the list, was road commission and county commission. And I'm comfortable with, at least in December, that if it's only staff at the road commission or if a trustee wants to go, we can go.
So, part of what our documentation tells us is someone's assigned to it.
Correct.
So, if 4 people go, that gets out of the range of paying. You get into the pay issue. Who's responsible to
You
go?
don't
And
take
who
pay.
wants to go?
Right. Yeah.
And
I'm not
so-
suggesting paid, I'm just suggesting that if people want to
To
go,
go.
they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what trustee Lanning is talking about is, in the policy, and this is, I don't know how long this has been in the township, but, there was pay given to trustee members for attending meetings. And years ago, that became, I think it was abused. People would go to a meeting for 5 minutes, walk out, and I went to a meeting, I get $50.
Right.
And so the board back in 2014 set a policy saying, no. You're gonna be the liaison, you're the only one that can claim pay, and we want you to go, and so we're gonna compensate you, so that you get, pay for your gas and a little bit of your time. And that was the intent of that policy, was to
Right.
encourage that liaison role. So what trustee Lanning is speaking to is if you go on your own and you're not a liaison, there's not extra pay for that, it's just part of
Certainly.
your duty,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I just went just to go.
Right. Trustee Thering.
Should we ask if someone would like to be a designated to the county commissioner until January? We can all go, but someone specific.
I'm okay with that. My fear, and I'm okay with it, my fear was, I didn't want to do some of those appointments till everybody's had a chance to kind of look through all this, because I don't want somebody to feel like they're kicking somebody out of their spot because they want it,
Right.
right? Like if I went on the county commission, you appointed me, and maybe Moran, trustee Lay, sorry, really wanted that. She might not feel like she wants to speak up. Well, Brian's going now, so. That was my fear and why I didn't think of doing that.
I
But
think-
I'm okay with it.
I think everybody should look over the list and then we'll do it at our next meeting
Yep.
instead of in your comment
Yep.
or public comment.
I was thinking January, because
Or
there's not
whichever,
gonna be a
it doesn't
lot,
matter.
there's not gonna be a lot through the
Yeah.
holidays anyways.
I was saying, just look over the timelines and see what best suits you,
Yep.
is my opinion.
Okay.
Are you done with your comment?
I am. That list, by the way, is in the policy governance 2 I won't tell you where it is. It's 3.10 and 11. Page 20 of the policy governance.
Is it okay to not add this whole conversation into your comment? Or do you-
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, if you want to
Absolutely.
key some notes in that you said, you
This,
can do
this was
that.
not normal. I was doing more bookkeeping stuff today than I normally
Okay.
would. I was trying to get new members up to speed on a lot of stuff that we normally have. So, all right. So I think I'm done. But welcome all. I'm thrilled. Looking forward to 4 years together.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Clerk Cody.
Support.
Support by Brown. Any objections? Discussion? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 9:14 PM.
Do we turn these off?
I'm sorry.
No, they'll just.